their first syndication. And it's all because of Total Wealth and because of the education and because of who they know. And then you have Frank and Jessica. So they're at the KP level. That means key principal. Amazing, right? So they're all a team. It's all a partnership. It not only closed, but it funded today. Amazing. Congratulations. I couldn't be happier. And just so you know, Frank's also on the realty team, guys, residential and commercial. So all that knowledge he has on the commercial side with what he's done today, he is able to give that back to members. So it's such a privilege to be up here and talk about an amazing team and the success. And thank you guys very, very much. But it's all about these people right here. So congratulations.
Thank you, Alyssa, and congratulations to our Total Wealth Realty team. And now I'd like to introduce CEO, founder, and lead consultant, Steve Davis.
Thank you. Thank you. I want to just explain how we're getting all these big deals done for people who are not familiar with passive investing or they're not familiar with Total Wealth Academy. What you have in these deals is a sponsor, also known as a syndicator. We use the word sponsor probably 90% of the time. You can see many of their pictures on the wall. These are the people that I invest with, and these are the people that the members of Total Wealth Academy invest with. Please understand that the sponsor does all the work. They locate the deal, negotiate the deal, they actually sign on the mortgage, and they manage the deal, and then they sell the deal. They do everything. But in those deals is a thing called a passive investor like myself. And you may have as many as 100 passive investors in one deal. These are people who, I'm going to pick on the IRA and 401k for a moment. They're people who have been dissatisfied with the performance of their IRAs and 401ks, speculating in the stock market or mutual funds. And they want to move it into something that's more effective and more productive. Now, one thing that everybody needs to understand is if you sit here and you go, well, I'm kind of scared of being a passive investor, I want you to know you're already a passive investor. You already are. And the reason is, when you put money in the bank, what does that bank do with your money? Do they just put it in a vault for safekeeping? They invest it in real estate. They passively invest your money in real estate, and they make 15, 20, 25% rate of return. What are they paying you? 1%, 2%? I think I've seen as high as 4%. Why don't you passively invest yourself and make the 15, 20, 25%? They're doing it. Some of you say, don't realize this either. Every time you pay your insurance premium, what do they pay you back? Nothing. But what are they doing with your money? Buying real estate. The banks and the insurance companies are the biggest real estate owners in the nation. They're passively investing with your money and paying you jack or nothing. You're already a passive investor. Don't be afraid of it. So a sponsor goes out, and let's say they find a $20 million project that's going to take about $5 million to close, or $6 million to close. They may put up 500 grand, $1 million, but then the other members of Total Wealth Academy put up the rest. And they can use their IRAs and 401ks without tax or penalty to do that. So that's how these big deals are getting done. It's not what people think. People think, wow, one person bought that huge apartment complex. That's not, I mean, yeah, once in a great while. But most of them are syndications, like we do here at Total Wealth Academy. So I've got quite a few syndicators here this evening. I'm going to ask every sponsor to stand up right now, please. Frank and Frank, we got Manny, we got Terry, we got Craig, we got Sam, we got David. These are the leaders. Oh yeah, Terry. Sorry, Terry, I didn't mean to make you last. These are the leaders. Thank you, everybody. These are the leaders. They go out there. They take the risk. Not that the passives don't take a risk. Don't get me wrong. It's like 50-50. But they locate the deal. And these people are passionate about real estate. I've had lunch with sponsors where they got so excited about the deal they were doing, they spit on me. You ever had that? I'm so excited, and they're spitting on me. I'm like, okay, calm down. Okay, I'll do the deal. That's the people I want to invest with. And be aware that Manny and Terry have a deal available right now. Sam, Craig McKinley, they've got opportunities for the ComRes members. You have to be legally either an accredited investor or sophisticated at Total Wealth Academy. Even if you're accredited, you have to be sophisticated as well. We don't want any dumb doctor deals. So afterwards, we're going to be networking. Make sure that you touch base with Craig, Sam, Manny, and Terry before you leave. If you're a ComRes member, if you're a qualified passive investor. All right, let's get into my material. And I want to thank everybody for the opportunity to share this material. It means the world to me and the team. We work hard to develop this, and it's my honor to share it, but I don't want you to think that this came from just my head. There's a lot of work, a lot of research that goes into this stuff. But I want to talk tonight about the maturity continuum. And the maturity continuum is basically going from dependent to independent. I'm going to leave that one blank. There's a third stage, and not many people know what it is. But there's a third stage in life. Think about this. How can you get to a stage in life that you don't even know exists? It's very difficult, isn't it? If you don't even know there's a third stage, you think you're winning when you get here, independent. But what if also, not only you don't know the third stage, but you mistakenly think you're here when you're still here? Get a minute? Exactly. Who said that? Thank you, Frank. Fist bump, air fist bump. Let's talk about dependent first. When you're a little kid and you do chores to get a allowance every week, what stage is that? Independent or dependent? It's obviously dependent, right? And as you grow up, your parents tell you, work hard in high school, go to college, get out and get a job so you can be independent. And they tell you about independence. And they tell you that as soon as you get a job, you're independent. When you can pay your own bills, you're independent. Wrong. It's wrong. If you're a little kid and you do chores throughout the week to get an allowance at the end of the week, or if you're an engineer, attorney, CPA, and you do chores during the week to get a paycheck at the end of the week, are you independent or dependent? You're still dependent. Having a job, a career, is still the dependent stage. You haven't even made it to independent yet, let alone the third level. And most people go through life, their entire life, dependent. They never achieve independence. Then some people will say, okay, I'm independent because I own a business. I like you already. They go, I started a roofing business. I started a restaurant. I'm an attorney. I started a legal practice. That is the independent stage. So I'll give you that. But there's a third stage. See, independent means you're not relying on somebody else for your paycheck. The harder you work, the more effective you are, the more money you make. That's independent. But there's a third stage called interdependence. Interdependence. And what happens is everybody that's self-employed thinks, I'm at the top. I'm done. But they're not. Because you have to understand, when a person says, I own a business, all you have to do is ask them this question. Can you disappear for 5 years and make the same amount of money as if you're there? Then you don't own a business. You're just self-employed. You're self-employed. Independence is self-employment. Interdependence is a true business owner. And to understand the difference, if you go back to 2008, 9, 10, 11, 12, 15, I was involved in about 4,000 department units. I did not know where they were. I did not have a key to the front gate. I did not know who the manager was. I didn't know who any of the tenants were. That's a business. I knew nothing. And I think I was pulling in about 80 grand a month. That's a business. That's interdependence. Now, those of you that are now mad at me, these would be the self-employed people, and going, God dang it, I thought I owned a business. You don't. That business, and I knew that was your point earlier, wasn't it? The business generally owns you because you got to be there every day, all day long, 40, 50, 60 hours a week. That's just independence. Now, am I putting down being self-employed? Absolutely not. Self-employed is an awesome step. Be proud of yourself. I love self-employed people. But make sure you understand that there's a third step. But do you see how there's a few mind screws in there? Should I use the word? I'll just say it. A few mind fucks in there? You've been told that when you get a job, you're independent. They screwed with you. But you can't be mad at your parents. They didn't know. Because their parents didn't know, and their parents didn't know, and their parents didn't know. Then you get to independent, and you think you're interdependent, but you're really not. You're just self-employed. Attorneys, doctors are really the worst. Doctors are really the worst. When I tell them, can you disappear for, ask them, can you disappear for 5 years and make the same? Oh, the looks on their faces. They're furious because they suddenly realize, man. And dentists, love dentists, nothing against dentists, but you can't be a dentist the rest of your life. Leaning over like that? Any dentists in the room? True or false? Sooner or later, it's going to destroy your back. Sooner or later. You got to get out of that quickly. So what you want to be thinking about as you watch these speakers tonight, what stage are they at? And how are they helping and serving others? The sponsors are in a combination because most of the sponsors have multiple streams of income, multiple. And the independence would be our first speaker, who's phenomenal. I'm so excited to have her here because there's a few naysayers in the room that don't believe that you can do what she's going to show you tonight. They don't believe. They've emailed me. They've called me. Yeah, huh. It's going to happen right in front of you. So what you want to do is this. This is the ultimate goal, interdependence. You want to build a second stream of income that meets and exceeds all of your wants and needs. I generally recommend 2 times whatever your expenses are. If your expenses are $7,000 a month, then go to $14,000 a month, and then quit your job, go find something you love to do. Be careful though. There's a group out there that says as soon as your passive income reaches that point, quit working, retire. I got a warning for you. Retirement sucks. It freaking sucks. Travel, golf, even the strip club gets old after about 3 months. After about 3 months, you're like, is this all there is? All that selfish stuff, travel, golf, all that crap, gets old fast. If you follow the Dalai Lama at all, he brings up the point that the purpose of life is to be happy. But Albert Schweitzer, the basketball coach, greatest basketball coach, John Wooden, and many, many others bring up this point. A life not in the service of others is not a life worth living. So once your passive income does allow you to quit your job, I recommend highly that you take that 3 months and have fun and then get back to work. Get back to helping and serving other people. Only this time, don't take a job you hate. Don't take a job because it has high pay and good benefits. Take the job you love. Do what you love. And for many of you, you know what you're going to do? Self-employment. You're going to quit your job, start a little bakery, start a restaurant, paint houses. I've got one guy from my old company. He literally paints houses by hand with a brush. That's his thing. The guy's worth millions, and he paints out. Now, it's $16,000 a house, and we're talking a little 322s. But find what you're passionate about. Get out there and help and serve other people. Because, again, there's a catch to being happy. And you're not going to be happy if you're not helping and serving other people. So, final statement, make sure that you know this is the end goal. Business owner, where you've got investments that produce the income that you need to live and survive. And the wonderful thing about this, too, it has nothing to do with age. You know how they always, if you go to a financial planner, they're always talking about when you're 65, when you're 70. That's a bunch of crap. You can do this in your 20s, 30s, 40s. Has nothing to do with age. Nothing at all. All right. Let me move on to our first speaker, Camille Davis. Camille, if you would head on up. Met her a couple of times. When she first said it, I was like, can I hear that again? 60, how many, is it 60 even? Yeah. 60 single family homes. And a tremendous number of them she used subject to purchase them. So she's going to share her ideas and concepts and how she did it right now. Thank you, Camille.
Yes, thank you. Hello. I found the best kept secret in real estate. I thought, why doesn't everybody do this? So we'll just switch over. What do you guys see? Do you guys see it? Oh, there you go. Yes, so I'll tell you a little bit about myself. I got to Houston. I got a job at MD Anderson Cancer Hospital. I am a nurse. I was a nurse. And I quit my job to stay home with my first child. Now, this was the hardest decision I had ever made because I felt like I had worked my whole life to get to this job, bachelor's degree, all of the work that it took, worked with multiple doctors, finally get this amazing job at MD Anderson, and then I'm going to quit. So then I thought, what did I work my whole life for? Now I'm just quitting because I'm going to go stay with my kids, right, the first baby. So I did feel like this sense of loss and kind of an identity, you know, who am I if I'm not doing this thing? So I'm home, and I've got this baby that sleeps all the time, and I'm incredibly bored mentally. And my mother-in-law sends me this book, and she's working with a real estate investor, and she's editing the book. So she says, hey, can you read this book? Make sure I'm not missing any mistakes in it. And honestly, the book I didn't really think was that interesting. But I do remember throughout the book it said, get the deed, get the deed, get the deed. And then, of course, multiple chapters, I'm like, okay, I get it, get the deed. So then at the very, very end of the book, it talked about tax sales and how in Texas, tax sales are the best place. Or to buy properties at a tax sale, it's the best place to do it is in Texas. And that intrigued me, because then it said that you get the property for the price of taxes. So then I was kind of hooked. I was like, that's interesting. So I do all that. I go to my husband and I say, guess what? In Texas, you get the deed to the property. And it's only the taxes that are owed, and it wipes out a mortgage. And he's like, oh, I'm sure it's not that easy. Like, you are doing all your research. You are not going to go to an auction. You are not buying. So I did. I did all this research. I go to my first auction. I didn't go with money because he said I couldn't buy. And I watched a property go for $20,000. That's what was owed on the taxes. And I show up at this auction. I don't know what I'm doing. And I'm watching all these people, mostly men, actually. I think I'm probably the only woman there. But I didn't care. And I was intrigued. I saw a property go in Kingwood. I had 10 researched properties. Half of them were canceled. But this one went at the end of the day. And it was in Kingwood. It was worth $120,000. I saw somebody buy it for $20,000, and nobody bid against them. So I was like, I am going to go back, and I'm going to get a property. So the next month I go, and I have my money with me. I went 5 more times. All the properties went for more money that time. But this particular time that I went, it was 4th of July. It's always on the first Tuesday of every month. That's when my husband had off work. That's when I had somebody to stay with the baby. So then I was like, I got to catch these things before they hit the auction. So after a while, I had, also I just want to tell you, I'm not giving you any legal or tax advice. I'm not an accountant, I'm not a CPA, because I do things a little differently, and you're going to find out. And I'm not encouraging you to do it the way I did it, but I'm going to tell you about it. So I learned, so this is after the tax auctions, this is after me doing a bunch of research. So about 4 years in, I have a friend of mine from church, and she came up to me and she was telling me how her husband had left her. And she wasn't going to be able to make the next payment on her house. She was going to move in with her parents in California, and she didn't know what she was going to do. And so I thought, wow, that stinks, you know. And I went home that night, and I thought, get the deed. I'm like, what if I just get the deed and I just make the payment on her house? And that's exactly what I did. So then I was like, okay, I don't know how to do it, but I thought my very first home that I ever bought has a deed. So we're in our first home with our first baby, and I go find the documents and I find the deed. So then I went and drew up the deed. I copied it. I copied the deed. I found where I knew where to put her name, because that's the person that sold it to us. I knew where to put my name, right? And so I put her name in there. I put my name in there. I go file the deed at the county myself. So I'm walking into the county office, downtown Houston, and go to the 4th floor on Caroline Street, where you go to court. And I'm putting my paper up there with all these lawyers and everything, and I'm standing there with my one piece of paper. And I put it on the table, and honestly, it felt like 30 minutes, but it was probably 10 seconds. She's like writing stuff on the deed, and she's going through it. Then she looks up at me, and she says, you want a copy? She stamped it. I said, sure, give me a copy. I felt like I was robbing the bank. And obviously, my husband did too, because I go down, he's waiting in the car with my baby, and I said, they took the deed. And he said, get in the car, let's go. And so we go driving off. I felt like I had robbed the bank, and he was so scared of this that he thought a police officer was going to come knocking on our door, and that we were going to get in trouble. He's like, what did my wife just do? So a year later, we end up refinancing the house. So I had left this loan in her name, and I had gotten the deed to the property. and I was paying her loan, but I never got the loan in my name. And then, actually, Donnie Gothard, who is here tonight with, is it Verity? He was the first person that I refinanced my first home with, and I've never refinanced ever since. So that first home, so guess what I just did? I just bought my first property, my first investment property. I ended up moving into it, actually, renting out my home that I was in, and moved into this other one. My home, my payment on my first home was $1,200 a month. The payment on the new home was $1,600 a month. I rented my house out for $1,600 a month, moved into the new home, then I got the homeowner's insurance down. So I was actually paying $1,500 a month. So I was making $100 a month, and I had 2 homes. And I'm paying the same thing. So, but then what I thought was, I just got into this home with no down payment. Normally, you'd have to have 25% down. You'd have to have 25% in reserves. And you'd have to qualify, which I had great credit, so I could qualify. But I quit my job to stay home. So the income was not going to be amazing. Well, it was okay. But I was like, what did I just do? What did I just figure out? I'm like, this is cool, right? It was like the light bulb, that moment of like, I'm just going to go get as many of these properties that I can. And so right now, so in 4 years, well, this is, this is what I do now, is I've started a women's group, a women in business group. I love having men too. I just knew there was this need for women to find a community and to find help. And I'm building by the University of Houston. Actually, we'll just go through there. These are my kids. When I started this, my oldest, when I actually got my first property, my oldest was 4. I had a 2.5-year-old and a 10-month-old. They're all 18 months apart. So, but of course I started doing it when my first was a baby. So I have a 17-year-old, I have a 15-year-old, a 14-year-old, and a 12-year-old. And I still do this today. But they were little babies driving around, and I was driving around in the car, finding properties. And then this is my women's, that's my women's group. That was one of them, just a picture we had on one of them. And then here's the fourplexes. Now, I am able to do the fourplexes today down by the University of Houston because all of my properties support, the income on them support pouring all this money out on these fourplexes. So it's down, there's the picture of where it's at. And then it was an old home, found it off of Facebook. This was right after COVID. And I knew I couldn't get properties the way I was always getting properties because the foreclosures had all stopped. So I started doing Facebook marketing, went through all kinds of crazy stuff with Facebook marketing, but I got this from a Facebook market lead. It took us 1.5 years to get the permits on this property. So I'm floating this $200,000 hard money loan, pretty much. It was a private money loan. And, luckily my properties could do it. So here we are. And then this is just yesterday.
So wait for it. Wait for it. Ooh, look at those things. Isn't that beautiful?
There you go. 3 years, guys. From the time we bought them till today, it has been 3 years. But look, it's happening. And I have a miracle lender thing that happened, and that's why I came to this group as my lender came. But this is kind of the colors we're going to use. We might do a little different. But here, this is what I want to tell you. So in 2 years, I replaced my nursing salary. In 4 years, I replaced me and my husband's salary. In 4 years, I had 30 homes that I had rented out. I had gotten 250 deeds in 4 years. Guess how much money, my own money, that I had into these? 30 homes, my own money, maybe $10,000 in 30 homes. And the money that even from other people, I think I only had maybe 20,000. So 30,000 total, 10,000 of my own money. And I had 30 houses. And you think, how in the world did you do that? Well, I took over payments, and some of them weren't even behind on their payment. I just stepped in. The first home I got, she was not behind on the payment yet. I stepped in and made the first payment, and she deeded the house to me. The first payment that she was going to be behind on. So I paid $0 for that house. right? I took over her loan, but I paid nothing for it. And I do it today. So I just got one last week, and I just showed up at a renter. I got one 3 weeks ago. They both have 3.5% interest rates. So today is amazingly cool, but it's the best kept secret ever. So now I have 11 million in assets. Can you believe that? My husband, right? He still hasn't quit his job. He's very traditional. His risk level is like over here, and my risk level is over here. But he's miserable because he just got his real estate license. So I'm not licensed agent. I've done all this without being licensed. So I had people coming to me and saying, can you sell my house? And I'll say, no, I'm not an agent. And they're like, well, how are you doing all this if you're not an agent? I'm like, well, I can buy and sell my own houses. So I was turning away people quite a bit at this point. And my husband's like, that's money walking out the door. So he went and got his license 2 years ago. His first year, he made $150,000. So, I mean, why does he need his job? I don't know. And then, and then his second year, he's like, well, the market was just good. This was after COVID. And houses were flying off the market. He's like, it's just because the market's good. And I said, no, you would do good anyway. So then the next year, none of the agents, nobody's doing well. Like, interest rates skyrocketed. Nobody's selling. He made $130,000 his second year. And I said, so why can't you quit the job? But again, he's the secure one, right? The yin and the yang, we even each other out. But so when I hit 30 properties, I got 30 properties in 4 years, but I still manage all my properties by myself because these are beautiful, nice homes in nice neighborhoods, and they're not hard to manage. So the renters, most of my renters have been in there 6 years or more. They're families, they have great jobs, they want good schools for their kids, they want to be in there till their kids are gone. So somehow, I got the best properties you could ever get, with the best renters you could ever have, with the least amount of money that you could ever have, and I have no risk. None of these loans, with those 60 single-family homes, I don't have one loan in my name. Not one. Nothing's on my personal credit. So what is my liability? If the market were to crash today and I were to lose every single home, it wouldn't hit me personally. My credit would be fine. So what do I have to be scared of? I don't know. There's not much. But subject to. I didn't know what it was then. Now, of course, it's more well-known. Pace Morby's out there. Everybody knows what subject to is. Of course, when I started it, everyone was looking at me like, whoa, what are you doing? Right? Stay away from me. You're like kind of shady, or you're doing something kind of illegal. There is no jail for subject to. That's how people act, though. So I'm going to show you now a couple of the homes that I've got. Look at this beautiful home. This one I actually paid nothing for. Actually, no, I had to bring it current. So this one was $8,000 behind. So I paid $8,000, and I actually had a partner on this one. So she put up 4 and I put up 4. And then we just turned and sold it, and we split the profit, and I think we each made 15. We made our 8 back, and then made 15, or 4, the 8,000. This was the first one that I got that I moved into. That's the numbers that it had at the time. So, of course, now, today, it's worth $400,000, maybe almost $500,000, probably $450,000. I still have it. I rent it out today. I ended up renting this one out 5 years later, and then I went and got a bigger, nicer home that I paid nothing for. And I got a 2% interest rate on the home that I'm currently in, and it's subject to. And I did a really cool, there was a first and a second loan, and they gave me like $100,000 debt relief, and I took over a 2%. I did a loan modification. Anyway, so look at these homes. This is one that I got. Paid nothing for this. Stopped it from foreclosure, and put it in with an attorney, because this is a 2006 loan, and I have an attorney that will sue the banks from 2006 because they did a lot of fraudulent things with the loans. I don't know if you've seen The Big Short, but they basically gave loans to everybody and anybody. So I did a lawsuit on this against the bank. I have a great attorney for this. And crazy enough, rented it out for 2 years. Then the bank came back and said, you know what, give me $300,000 and the house is yours. And what was owed on it at the time was probably $450,000. So I bought it for $300,000, although I already had the deed. So I had the deed to it, but I was fighting with the mortgage. So then I ended up getting it for $300,000 and then turning around and flipping it and made $50,000. So, but I cash flowed on it the first little bit. I paid the attorney. I was paying attorney fees, but I was renting it too. So this is another one. This one would not cash flow. He was upside down, foreclosing. You couldn't rent it for what was owed, and you couldn't sell it for what was owed. This was in 2016, but guess how I made this deal work? I put a 100% disabled veteran in the home, gave him 30% ownership, and got 100% exemption on the taxes. So then I got him an awesome monthly payment and was able to cash flow it. And so I saved the person in foreclosure, and I also helped the veteran get a house. And I still cash flow this one to this day. This one, I paid $13,000 for this one. Brought it current. But look at these homes. That is the one I live in today that I paid nothing for. 2% interest rate. My payment is $2,000 a month. I should be paying $4,000 a month for this house. And I'm just going to keep paying that loan. I'm not going to pay it off. Look at that one. Isn't that cool? These are beautiful. This is now a $600,000 home. It's the loan on it is $300,000 and took over a 2% interest rate on that loan. Yeah, this one, when I got it, the guy, it was the day of foreclosure. So I found him 2 weeks before, and I said, hey, let me save the house. He's like, no, I've got it worked out. So I said, if for some reason it doesn't work, please call me back. So I call him the night before, and he's like, yeah, it's going to foreclose. I said, why didn't you call me? So then I stopped this one the day of the foreclosure. I'm not going to really tell you how I did that. But then, and my plan was, this one looked like it had $200,000 in equity. Little did I know that he had a child support lien. And he also, because I can look up the county record and see most of the liens, but child support is on a whole different, it's on a family court side, and so you don't see those all the time. And then he also had tax loans. So he didn't have his taxes included in his monthly mortgage, which is rare. That doesn't happen that often. So then he went and took loans out to pay his taxes on the house. So he's paying 18% interest on tax loans. But I kind of got a little miracle thing that happened on this one where I stalled it out with an attorney, and the bank came back and gave us a no-doc loan modification, meaning, so then the guy gets put in jail. So I stop it from foreclosure. He gets put in jail like a week after the foreclosure. He gets arrested. He did some type of something with the government. I don't know if he was hiding money. I don't know what was happening. But so that shot my loan modification plan. But yeah, the bank sold off the loan to somebody else. The new lender that it got sold off to just started us over on a new payment with no documentation. So I was able to I never thought I would actually save this one. Once he got put in jail, I was like, oh, there's nothing I can do now. I can't do a loan modification because he was pretty far behind. But yeah, I ended up I traded houses with another lady. I said, hey, I have this home that you can come and live in, and I'll trade houses. The reason I traded houses is I could cash flow her house by $1,500 a month, and this home I could only cash flow like maybe $400 or $500 a month. So I said, let me take your smaller house, and I'll give you this big house. And I literally just traded. She deeded me hers. I deeded her this one. And when you know how to do this, you can just trade houses back and forth. This one was a really cool one that it was also a subject to. This one, someone died, and the daughter inherited the property, and she was only 19. And she, of course, was going to lose it. So then what I did is I came in, stopped it from foreclosure, put probably $60,000 into the house, and turned and sold it, and then paid her 30% of the profit when I sold it. She was just going to lose it anyway, but I gave her the profit. This one I paid nothing for. This one, my title agent, my escrow closing agent, she had this couple that were trying to sell the house, and they bought it brand new, and then they were going to get a divorce 2 years later. And so they were at the title company ready to close. This was in 2018, and they were coming to the table paying money to sell the house because they had just bought it 2 years before. And the buyer, she was at the closing table, and the escrow agent said the buyer wasn't able to get qualified. For whatever reason, the closing fell through. And then the two that were sitting there ready to close, they said, well, we're just going to let it foreclose then, because they had already moved out. They didn't want to keep up the payment. So then she told them to call me. And so when they did, I just stepped in and made the next payment for them, got it rented out. They had just painted it. They had just shampooed the carpet. Nothing wrong with the house. And I didn't make the next payment. The renter made the next payment. I was able to get it rented 2 weeks later, got the deed, got it rented in 2 weeks, and then paid the mortgage payment with the renter's payment. So, and this one happened after COVID. Anyway, these are beautiful homes. And this one's a cool one. I don't have to go into every property, but this one, I set up an IRA with Quest, and then I had Quest IRA own an LLC. So I created an LLC that Quest owned, that my Quest IRA owns, and then I bought this property with no money. So my IRA, it was one of those promotions where I had no money in the account. And so when I opened up my LLC bank account, they gave me a $15,000 credit card, which they never give me that much on a new bank account, so I don't know why they did. But they gave me a $15,000 credit card. I took that credit card and I paid the loan current on this house. Then I turned and owner financed the house on a wrap. So I took over a loan, then turned and sold it to somebody else, and I got a down payment. I got $25,000 down, which paid just the realtor fees and the closing costs. And then the $15,000 no interest credit card for a year, I had $500 a month coming in off of my note. So then that goes into my IRA bank account. And so that was also paid with no money, technically, from me. And I can't put money into that because it's my IRA. So that's a cool one. And I still have that one. So anyway, these are great properties. They're beautiful. Best place you could ever do it. But I'll just open it up for questions. Does anybody have questions? Yes. Yes. Okay, so the first 20 properties, the first deeds I put directly into my name. And then I went and told somebody that I did that, and they said, oh, you can't do that, that's illegal. And then when I went and did more research, I found out it's not illegal. But I did learn, I now put them all in a trust, and I'll put them all in separate trusts. It's a 6-page document that I paid for one time, and I use the same trust over and over. It's a land trust. And I've heard people say you can't do land trusts in Texas, but I'm doing it, and they're still selling, so must be okay. So you just figure out who, people say you can't do things, you go find out your answers for yourself. But then you had a question. Yeah, does that trust then prevent the due on sale clause from being I actually did have a bank call the loan due. It was Wells Fargo, and I sent them the trust. They called and said, hey, we're calling the loan due. And I said, well, I transferred the property to a trust. And they said, oh, well, we accept a trust. And so I sent it over to the bank. Of course, I told some people I did that too, and they're like, why would you do that? That's the stupidest thing you could do. But I sent it over. The bank came back and said, oh, this trust doesn't comply. I said, well, what do I need to do to make it comply? This is a revocable trust, meaning you can change it. And so they wanted it to be non-revocable when the person on the loan passed away, if they ever passed away. And they wanted it, I had it deeded to my LLC in the trust, so the owner on the trust was my LLC, and they wanted it to be my personal name. And so I changed that, and then there was one other thing they wanted, and I just changed that and sent it back over. And they said, okay, it looks good. They said, you want to get a new loan? And I said, no, I don't. I'm going to keep paying this one. so yes, I've done the due on sale clause thing. Yes? So except for that one, have you ever had any other banks call your loan due when you transfer the deed? I had one other, and it was declaration title, and it's because they notified the bank But they, at the time, were giving title insurance. And so they paid off the loan for me. So that was the only other one. Other than that, when I transfer the deed, when I'm transferring it to a trust is acceptable for estate planning purposes. Plus, no one knows who owns that trust. That trust stays private. And it skips probate. So the trusts have so many amazing benefits. They're private. You skip probate with them.
Currently, right now, doing a deed transfer, assumed mortgage deal, and I was worried about the bank calling the loan.
No, they don't. They're not going and looking up county record and finding everything that's transferred. And then also, people think when you change the insurance that it's going to trigger the due on sale clause. Has never happened to me. So, yeah.
So all of these people that deeded you the property, they never have said, I want to be out of this.
So yes. So I do what I say I'm going to do, and I wouldn't deed my property to just anybody because I treat people good, and I'm going to be honest. So when people come back and they say, hey, I really need this out of my name, I will do what I can to either refinance or sell it. But most of the time, this is what I do, is I say, what do you need? Why do you need this paid off? And then if they say, I'm going to go buy another house, then what I've been able to do is say, hey, I can show proof of payments to your lender, your new lender, and I've been able to get them qualified for a new loan. So like I am offsetting their debt to income so that they can go get another mortgage. So I've done that on at least 5 houses where they're able to go get another house. And I just keep the loan. Yeah.
What are some skills or personal traits and some leads to success?
You know, I really, truly think really trying to help the other person, being completely transparent and honest, and solving their problem. Don't just assume you know what their problem is, because sometimes they don't care about the money. They just really want out from under this awful situation that they're in and this debt. And so really listening to people and then really doing what they need you to do, not what I need, just what they need. And then that has been the key to all of it. And making it good. Making it a win-win for everybody, that is like the most rewarding feeling ever. When people are like, oh, you're just an angel. Thank you. Thank you for saving me. That's so rewarding. And I know I'm not an angel, but to be able to help somebody in one of the worst times in their lives and be able to solve the problem. That's what nursing is, except that you don't get to solve the problem most of the time. Now I get to solve the problem. So it's just amazing. And it pays way better. I did not keep up my nursing because I love this so much more. Yes?
What is subject to about?
Subject to. So the reason they call it that is you're buying the property subject to the original mortgage that's on the property. So that's why it's called subject to. Is that what you mean? So basically, I'm leaving the loan in somebody else's name. I never get a new loan. I get the title to the house. I own it. But they are still on the loan. It's still on their credit. And so whoever I go get the house from. So let's say, I don't know, I'll just think of a name. Let's say Robert Davis. We'll just say Robert Davis. That's actually my husband's name. Kyle, he goes by Kyle. But let's say he's got this loan and it's Robert Davis is on the loan. And then I say, hey, deed the house to me, and I'll just make your payments. So I leave that loan in Robert Davis's name, but I own the house. So, but I have the right, I have the authorization to speak on the loan. So, yes. And you guys can stop me whenever you want to, because I know there's a time frame, but yes.
And so when you do that, you're actually looking at properties that are foreclosed or
No.
independent, or what are you?
It could actually be any situation, any walk of life. Like life happens. Most of them I found they were in foreclosure, but it could be like that couple that was getting a divorce. They weren't even behind on the payment, but they had both already got new boyfriend, girlfriends. They had both separated. They're both living in separate homes, and they just didn't want to keep up this property anymore. So it could be really anybody in any situation. It could be a job, you lost a job, or a job transfer. Now you've got to go move, and now you have this house that maybe you bought 2 years ago. This is happening a lot now, where they bought and the interest rate's like 6% or even 2%, and now they can't sell it. So that's what I'm actually getting today is those brand new nice ones that don't have any equity, and they're having a hard time selling them. They're in the $500,000 price range, and those aren't selling as fast. Yes, crazy enough. Crazy enough. Right. So now it's a lot of people will refer it to me. Yeah. So it's a word of mouth.
So that's what I was going to ask. How do these leads come to you?
Yeah. So also now I've been asked to speak at a lot of places. So last month I was asked to speak in Austin. I was asked to speak in San Antonio. I never dreamed I'd be a speaker. I don't love too much attention actually, but I do love what I'm doing. And so, yes, I never volunteered to speak, but now, so just going. So the one in San Antonio that I just spoke at, no, the one in Austin. I got a call yesterday, and she said, you know what? I took over my brother's deed because him and his wife had separated, and he left the house, and the wife was still in the house, and she's like, I don't want it. She's like, this is not my thing. I don't want to do this. Well, and I ended up talking her into, I think today, this was today I talked to her. I said, why don't you owner finance it? I said, what is it that you don't want about this house? Like, why are you scared of it? And I talked her into owner financing it, and she could get an $80,000 spread on an owner finance, and she can probably get $200 or $300 a month. And she's like, oh. And I'm like, and then you're not the landlord. Now you just have this note, and you don't go fix the house when it's broken, or so. But now, yeah, it's just word of mouth, I think, now.
All right, I'm going to have to shut it down
Yeah, go ahead.
and move forward. Thank you very
Yes.
much. Just a quick question. If Camille were to buy a 200-unit apartment complex and she needed a partner, anybody willing? Yeah, you need to think about that.
And I love that. He's like pushing me to the next level. Right. I'm going to take you up on it. I'll go
Yeah.
try to get an apartment. Sub 2. I'll do it. Take it over. Thank you.
Oops. Okay. Yeah, that's just phenomenal. The number of creative angles that she used to get every deal done, just that creativity is what it takes. It's don't ever go, this can't be done. Just go, how can this be done? It's a different way to ask. Tony Robbins talks about so many people ask the wrong question. They ask, why can't this be done? Why can't I lose weight? Here's the problem. Your brain's going to answer. You can't buy it for this, this, and this. You can't lose weight for this, this, and this. Because you asked the wrong question. Instead of going, how can I buy this property? How can I lose weight? How can I have a better relationship? How can I have more time with the kids? Guess what your brain will do? Answer that. And you'll get the answer you need. So be careful the questions that you ask. Be careful how you ask certain questions. The next speakers, David Priest and Stacy, is it LaBella? Okay, here they come. They are going to be talking about the facts behind real estate investing and the infinite return. This is one of the most educated guys in real estate investing I've ever met. I talked to him in the hallway, and he mentioned three different podcasts or whatever that you listened to in the last 24 hours or 48 hours. He is constantly educating himself because he's humble and understands that he has to be constantly growing to be a good sponsor. So that's very exciting to me. So please enjoy.
Thank you so much. We just joined Total Wealth Academy a few months ago, so I've met a few of you. I'm not familiar with everybody, but I want to get to know everybody that's here. Congratulations, Frank, on your closing day. That's totally amazing. We're very excited about that. And just, what about Camille? Wasn't she amazing? Fantastic. Her story's amazing, and anyone can do it. So basically what we're going to talk about is our story, how we got here, because there's a lot of twists and turns that got us here. We were living a very conventional life, and then things started happening, and it brought us to this path. So I'm going to let my wife, Stacy, tell about how we got here, basically.
Hi, everyone. So I thank you for the opportunity. I'm just so excited to be here. And I want to tell you a little bit of our story and how we got here to be standing here right at this moment. And so, as David said, I didn't realize all the rules that we were following, even maybe some unwritten rules and some that were written down, but we definitely did. And so that's why I started with dreaming big and following all the rules. So even I would say all the way back in high school, in college, I was in the top 10 of the class. You know, I was working the most that I could to get good grades. I wanted to set myself up for success, and that's really how I was brought up. You do really, really well. And so I was kind of an overachiever, I guess, because I made it the top 10 once and then twice, right? And then I also learned that in order to get an MBA, you needed 3 to 5 years of work experience. So I went off to get the 3 to 5 years of work experience. And then from there, I went and got the MBA. And so here I was checking all these boxes, right? So I got the MBA, went to the Thunderbird School of Global Management, had been dreaming of that for a long time, went and did it. And then I landed the dream job. It was that corporate job in the high rise in downtown Houston. So I moved there, moved here to Houston from Ohio originally. And I really felt like, gosh, I must have made it now. When I went up to the building on the first day and rode the elevator up there to the 34th floor, and there was my name on the door at my office, and I was like, okay, I have made it now. And then I really thought I had really made it when I met David about a year later. He and I, he was sitting at a wine bar, you know, that I showed up, and he happened to have an empty chair there, and he was facing the door as if he was waiting for me. And somehow or another, which I never do this normally, I just sat down next to him and said hello. And there we were. And about 5 hours later, we were still talking. And so it just seemed like things were falling into place in life, right? I was following all the rules, so things must have been falling into place. And so then about a year later, we got engaged, and another year later, we got married. And then about a couple years later, we had our daughter. And then a couple years later, we had our son. And everything was good, right? We're shoveling money into our 401k and our IRA. We're like, we have to max this out so that we can have a great retirement in however many decades that was going to be. And we had the 2 kids and the dream. But there was a cost to what we were doing. There was a cost to it because I was working in corporate finance, and I was working 50, 60 hours a week, and sometimes 90 or 100, right, depending on what time of the month it was or time of the year. And so there was a cost to what we were doing, and it was all okay for a while, right? All the international travel, the things, before we had the kids, I mean, he would go with me, right? Because he had this mortgage and real estate company, and so he had independence, and so he would go with me to these different travels. And so we really worked hard to, oh, I didn't switch the slide, that's why you're looking at me. So we really worked hard to build that future together. But
the rainbow's real, by the way. Yeah, no Photoshop.
Yeah, it is. Oh,
there
yeah.
was a thunderstorm.
And there was a double rainbow.
There was a rainbow behind us the day we got married.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, you know, it was all perfect, right, until it wasn't. And so we were building this life together. But what happened was we always kind of felt like there's something more. There's some kind of rules that we don't really know, or something that other people are doing that somehow we don't know about. Because of course, you know, it took us 3-4 months to even be able to actually have our salaries, because you know we were paying taxes all that time, right, for those 3-4 months before we ever really had anything to show for it every year, right? And we only had just our townhouse that we lived in. We hadn't invested in real estate. And so then the unexpected happened, and this is where things took a turn. So we were on so I had at this point decided that I was going to leave my role, my corporate role, because we had a child with special needs. We had a lot of things going on. The mortgage and real estate industry or business was going very well. And so I had decided to leave my role. And just at that point in time, they tell you, well, if you do that, bad things are going to happen and everything, and you better make sure you have all your health insurance in place and all that stuff. And we're like, yeah, everything will be fine, right? But then we found ourselves on a ski trip, and there wasn't much snow, so we decided to go horseback riding too to kind of fill in. And so we're on this ski trip, and David starts to notice that he's just not feeling quite right. And he starts to feel like he has like a swelling in his lymph nodes. And I thought, oh, it's got to be nothing, probably is nothing. And of course, he knew that there was something wrong. So earlier in the year, was early in 2022, that's when he got diagnosed with leukemia. And he had to end up having chemo treatments. And this was just a couple of months after I had left my corporate role. And then later that same year, my dad was driving in his Jeep in the desert, and he pretty much literally drove off a cliff. And he did survive, but his car went a really long way out in the desert, and it was quite devastating. He had a terrible head injury. And so I ended up, a couple months later, I ended up picking him up and bringing him to Texas so that I could take care of him. And so here we were with David with leukemia, my dad now living unexpectedly with us, and also our son had special needs, and we had a teenage daughter, right, that requires a lot of time. And so all of a sudden, things weren't as we expected. We're like, we followed all the rules, but somehow it just didn't work out that way. And so over time, though, we kept kind of working toward. I think when you're going through hell, keep going, right? And so that's kind of what we did. And so the moral of the story is invest in commercial real estate, because if we had at a minimum some other passive income that we could have had when we didn't have time to run our businesses, when we didn't have time to do the work that we had expected to, things would have been, at least from a financial perspective, not quite so rocky. But we didn't have that. We thought that we were in a low-risk situation, right? Because we had the steady job. We had invested in the 401k. But then we realized that when you put that money in the 401k, it's locked in there, and you have high penalties to get it out, right? And so we had put all that money in there, but it was really not too useful for us. And so what I learned from Robert Kiyosaki then is, and I didn't know that I would own it so much, is that a job is a short-term solution to a long-term strategy. And here we had jobs, but that was just a short-term solution. What we needed to do was set ourselves up a lot better through commercial real estate. And that's really why we are now here, because at last we started to really realize this and learn about it. And as you saw, David has been learning as much as he possibly can, because what we realized is following all the rules, those were old rules. Those aren't the new rules of today. When we used to meet, and we do finance meetings every month, and we would review our stocks, and he did the same incredible research on stocks to optimize that, and we'd rebalance, and we discuss our finances every month. But there was a critical piece missing, and that critical piece that was missing was investing in commercial real estate, where you actually get to utilize the depreciation for your taxes, you get cash flow, you get the appreciation. It's an amazing thing. And we can't go back in time and be able to do what we wish we would have done some years ago, but we can tell everyone we know that this is something just worth looking into. And so now what I'd like to be able to I'm going to hand off to David. And I wonder, it sounds really good, right? To have an investment that continues to cash flow for you, right? But how about an investment that continues to cash flow for you forever? That sounds even better, doesn't it? So that is a strategy that David is going to talk to you about now.
Also want to talk about my experience a little bit with cancer. I'm healthy now, thank God. I was doing everything right when I got sick. So I was a healthy person, eating right, taking care of myself, doing everything. I was real upset when it happened, because if I had known I was going to get sick, I would have probably had a lot more fun. Basically, But what I learned was two things. Number one, Stacy had left her job, and like our family was so negative on that. And one thing you got to deal with if you want to do something different, you're going to have friends and family that are very negative. And they told me basically, look, she's got this great job, corporate, all these benefits. It's an amazing thing, and you're going to lose your health care benefit. And what if you get sick? And I was like, oh, well, I'm not going to get sick. I'm fine. Well, 3 months later, I had cancer. So parents were, they were turning out to be maybe right. But basically, I had to quit working for about 4 months, not because I couldn't, but I wasn't sure with the chemo if I'd really be able to do a good job. And I was a solopreneur. I didn't have a backup. I didn't have another person that could do the work. So when I stopped working, the income stopped. So even though I was self-employed, I was still trading time for money. It's kind of like the doctor example that Steve Davis used earlier. If I didn't work, I didn't make money. So that was a real eye-opener for me. Also, for those 4 months, I was basically retired. I wasn't working. We had this big stack of money that we were starting to draw off of. Dave Ramsey said enough money to retire. And I'm telling you, when you stop working and the money stops coming in and you start drawing off that stack, it is the scariest feeling in the world. It sucks. I've been retired. I don't want to be retired ever again. It's terrible. So if that's what you're looking forward to when you're really old and you're sacrificing now, so when you get older, you're going to enjoy that. Believe me, when you get there, it's going to suck. And everybody I know that's done a traditional retirement, they're almost all worried about money. All my family, my parents, everybody's always constantly worried about money. So I want to talk to you really about the most amazing thing that I learned early on my journey. And this is basically infinite investing. And it's kind of an alternative to buy and flip. So this is not a critique or criticism of anybody that buys and flips houses. Or if people do projects and they want to move on. It's just I have a different perspective on this. I made a lot of money in the stock market by never selling. I was an index investor and I never sold. And I never got shaken out when things got bad. So the people I modeled myself after were Robert Kiyosaki, obviously, Ken McElroy, which most people here may not know. He's the person that Robert Kiyosaki basically invests with in his apartment complexes. Probably the syndicators all know him. But I saw a video of him very early on YouTube, and it basically changed my life. I saw a presentation of what he did with apartment buildings, and I said, I want to do that, or at least want to invest and find people that can do that. And I also included Jeff Bezos in here. Now, Jeff Bezos is not really considered like an apartment investor. He owns real estate, but he does the same tactic with Amazon stock. He did sell some recently, if you watch the headlines, but he very rarely sells Amazon stock. If he wants a yacht or something new, or his fiance, I heard it's kind of expensive right now. That's probably why he sold the Amazon stock. He just goes and borrows against his Amazon stock. If you borrow against something, it's not taxable unless you sell. So that's what we're going to talk about. So to illustrate this, I'm going to use an example of a 100-unit apartment complex. And I'm going to use a totally hypothetical situation or a hypothetical deal to keep the numbers simple. If I went through what Ken McElroy showed me, I think the numbers might be confusing for us and we might get lost in the math. So I want to be really careful with this. So basically, we're going to use a $10 million purchase price. We're going to say this is 100 units, $100,000 a door. We're going to get the math totally simple because I don't want you to learn the concept. The math isn't as important. We've got a $7 million mortgage, so we're going to put 30% down. $3 million in equity is down payment, about what you need right now to get into one of these deals. And we're going to say we need $1 million for CapEx for our rehab budget to rehab our units and to improve the outside, improve the property. And on a $10 million property, if it's really rough, you might need more than that. But let's just keep the example really simple. So we need $4 million in equity, $11 million all in. So we're just keeping the numbers super, super, super simple on this. So our net operating income, which is where our value on the property came from, was $600,000. We're assuming this is going to be a 6 cap. So to keep, once again, the math really simple, $300,000 for a mortgage. I'm assuming some interest only. The mortgage payment might be a little higher than that. And then we're going to cash flow $300,000. So with our equity and our cash on cash, we're at about 7.5%, okay? So this is kind of typical for what people would look at on a purchase deal on an apartment complex, okay? So everything looks good. We close on the property, and it wouldn't have to be us. It could be anybody on this wall or the syndicators here in the audience. There are a lot of people that can do what I'm going to show you. And oh, by the way, what I'm going to show you is not anything that I came up with myself. So if anybody thinks I'm really smart or like a genius, I just basically copied this from people that are smarter, wealthier, and more experienced than I am. So we go in and we execute our business plan. Now, people tell stories here on Spotlight Night about projects they've done and all the ups and downs, and there's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears that goes into buying a property and executing a business plan. And that's why it's great being a passive investor, because you don't have to deal with all that. You just get to hear the horror stories later. So think hard about being a passive investor, because it's amazing. You have to deal with all the stress. So 5 years go by, and we've got our $10 million purchase still. Our NOI is up to $900,000, so it's gone up 50%. Hang on, how many? Yeah, okay, make sure I didn't skip my slide. Our NOI has gone up 50%. Our mortgage payment is still $300,000. Our cash flow has gone up to $600,000, so it's gone up 2 times. And now we've got a property that's worth $15 million. So our equity is basically doubled. We've got equity of $4 million we put into the property. It's gone up to $8 million. It's gone up 2 times. Now, this is very typical of a successful syndication. So doubling the equity in 5 years is not anything unusual. Providing cash flow the whole time, this is nothing unusual. There's a lot of people here that can do this, have done it over and over again, and have a great track record for doing it. So this is not anything that is magical. So right now, the project is a success, okay? Should you sell the property right now? Okay, and the answer for most syndicators and most people would be yes. Most people sell these properties when they get to the 5-year period. They provided a great return, okay? They can show people, hey, we returned 20%. And a lot of people are just ready to move on to the next project, okay? I get it. And this is not a criticism of anybody that would sell this property. If you sold the property, you wouldn't be doing anything wrong. It would not be a mistake. It'd be a very successful project. But I want to show you another way of looking at it. So what happens when you sell a property? So number one, the cash flow stops. Unless you're going to provide owner financing to the new owner, or you're going to be a partner with the new owner, you're not getting any cash flow on something you don't own. The appreciation stops. You're going to lock in the sale at $15 million. You made a lot of money. That's fantastic. But if the property goes up more, you're going to lose that appreciation. You don't own the property anymore. The future cash out opportunities on the property stop, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. And the taxation or tax problems start. Now, you've doubled your money. It's fantastic. You got to report that to the IRS. You can do a 1031 exchange. You can go out and try to find a new deal, bonus depreciation, cost segregation. You can start playing tricks. You can hire a fancy accountant. But if you don't sell, you probably don't have to do anything as far as dealing with the accounting part of it. So basically, to avoid the tax problems, don't sell, okay? Now, are there good reasons to sell a property? Yes, many times. Maybe the neighborhood's going down. Maybe the project has not gone as well as you wanted it to, and you want to exit the exit strategy of just selling to get out of it. But I think there's too much dependence on appreciation. And if you've heard about people in multifamily getting in trouble the last couple of years, every deal that I've ever seen that looks like that, it's because people were depending on appreciation rather than cash flow. So think about that before you sell. And if you want to build an empire, you don't build an empire by selling your properties. Camille didn't get 60 properties. If she had flipped every one, she'd have 0, and she'd have to go out and look for another deal. So think about that before you start selling your properties. So here's another way to look at it. So we're 5 years out again. We got our $10 million purchase. Now we've got basically a $15 million property. We can go back to the bank. We could probably borrow about 75%. You guys are good at math. It's $11,250,000. Let's assume there were closing costs, round it down to 11, keep the math real simple. We're going to pay off the original loan of $7 million. So we got $4 million in equity originally, and now we have $4 million cash out. So we give the equity back to the investors, and we don't sell the property. We just hang on to it. The property's doing well. Why are we going to sell it? So our infinite return strategy now, we've got no money at risk, okay? If something happens, if the project fails within 3 years, if there's a foreclosure, if God knows what happens, basically, can you lose money at this point? No, you've got no money in the deal. I mean, you still want to run the project well and not lose the property and still cash flow it, but you can't lose money. You're still getting the cash flow, you're still getting the appreciation, you're still getting the future cash out, and you're not triggering any kind of a taxable event. The great thing is, too, let's say you are passive and you put $100,000 in this deal. You can take your $100,000 and go put it in another deal. And you can do this every 4 or 5 years and keep recycling that money. recycling and reusing the money, stacking cash flow upon cash flow upon cash flow upon cash flow. And if you get 4 or 5 deals down and your $100,000, there's a bad deal and something goes wrong and you lose the $100,000, you make a bad choice, all the other deals you do before are still paying you. You didn't lose the money, you just reused it. So basically, I know a lot of people out there looking and they're thinking, you know, that sounds really good, but I still want to double my money. I like doubling my money. It just sounds good to double my money. Well, if you're a little bit more patient, we can do that. So let's go out 10 years. So we go another 5 years. We did a refinance. You got your money back. You've got no money in the deal. It's still cash flowing with no money in. So we got 5 more years. We didn't sell the property. We've got 10 years now of cash flow, 10 years of appreciation, 5 years of having our principal back and being able to reinvest it. So you should be able to double your cash flow. And now you can do another cash out. Okay? So now our NOI has gone up to 1.2 million. So it's about 2 times what it was in the beginning. And the value's gone up 2 times, which sounds like a lot, but you got to remember that 10 years have gone by. That's only 7% a year, okay? The going from 15 million to 20 million is only 33%. From 10 to 15 was 50. That's the hard one. After that, the math starts getting a lot better. So you go refinance a second time, you get your new loan of 15 million, you pay off the loan of 11 million, you can give 4 million back to your investors again, and they have no money invested. And guess what? We still own the property. So basically, the loan payment's going to go up. I had it going at 50%, even though the loan's not going at 50%. We're still cash flowing, and you can do this over and over again every 5, 6, 7 years. And if you're not trying to sell the property or time the market, you can go in and do this when interest rates are advantageous or when the lending environment is advantageous. Right now is not a great time to refinance. If the rates drop down to 4%, everyone's going to want to refinance their properties and lock in that long-term debt. So I think the difference in this is going from being a appreciation investor and buying low and selling high to being a cash flow investor and holding something very, very long-term. And it reduces your risk profile. So this is otherwise known as buy, borrow, die. You're buying assets that cash flow. You're borrowing against them when it makes sense, not using leverage too much. Leverage is a double-edged sword. It can make you rich. It can also make you broke if you use too much. You're being careful, making sure that the property can handle the leverage. You reset your tax basis upon death. So when all these properties appreciate, if I pass away and she inherits it, the stepped-up basis is what she gets. If she decides, hey, I hate real estate, I'm done with this, I want to sell all my properties, she pays no capital gains, 0, because the stepped-up basis happened when I pass away, or if I pass on to my kids. If your kid's a YouTube influencer, doesn't want to be in real estate, they want to sell the property, they pay no taxes. You deferred your taxes until you died, which is basically forever. So that's another way to look at it with the taxes, deferring the taxes ever and never paying. And we wish we had known this when we got started. I mean, I made a lot of money in the stock market. I made some really good investments, but I locked up a lot of money in the traditional Wall Street type of investments, and now taking that in transition to real estate is really, really difficult. So I did learn this. I wish I knew it 20 years ago, but there's a Chinese proverb that says the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The next best time is today. And what I learned from cancer is today is all you have. Yesterday's gone, tomorrow's guaranteed to no one. So start today, start tonight, start networking, start learning, start figuring out what your path is and how you want to do this, but do something. That's it. Thanks. Any questions about any of this? A lot of this is hypothetical. Yeah, go ahead.
I know that some syndicators will sell after 5 or 7 years just because there's a life cycle with apartments. And there's a certain amount of maintenance. And after 7 years or so, it gets to be significant.
Right.
So that when you're holding 10 years or even longer, you're also looking at figuring those costs into the whole situation.
Yeah, you're right. And when you do your cash out, you can take the money from the cash out and put it back in the property and rehab your own property and upgrade your own property rather than going out and having to raise more money. So you can do it either way. There's not a wrong way to do this. If someone's taking really distressed properties and they're doing amazing rehabs and they're adding huge value and they sell them and they've got a track record of doing that, that's not the wrong answer. It's not a bad thing. There's just other ways of looking, other ways of doing it. And if I've got a great project that's going really well, I don't want to sell it. I mean, I want to sell the ones that are not as good, maybe, or maybe where an area is not as good, maybe the neighborhood's going down. But if you want to build a really large portfolio, you're not going to build it by selling. There may be a reason to sell. Maybe you want to build to a bigger property. Maybe your investors want to sell their 100 unit and get a 300 unit. That might make sense, but there's a lot of selling going on when I don't think it's a good idea to always sell. Any other questions?
Repeat the question.
Yeah. I'm going to do him first. Go ahead.
What would you say is the most important quality for success?
In commercial real estate,
So
humility.
The question was, what's the
Yeah,
most important
what's the
quality?
most important quality in real estate, commercial real estate specifically? Humility. Realizing what you don't know it all, and putting together a really, really, really good team of people that can do things that you can't do. Because if you think you're really smart and think you can do everything, you're going to crash and burn. Okay? And there was another question over here too. I didn't. Okay.
Do you come to a point where the value of the property doesn't increase?
I don't know. I mean, is there ever been a time when over long periods of time real estate didn't increase in value? Over short periods maybe, but no. I mean, basically, there's always going to be a shortage of housing. I mean, no, I think that real estate over time will always go up in value. So let me give you an example. Who's the greatest real estate investor of all time? The greatest, the number one. Thomas Jefferson. Louisiana Purchase, $15 million. He got the whole western U.S. for $15 million. Okay?
Hard to beat that.
That's hard to beat it. And he was criticized at the time. Wait, whoa, he overpaid. Why are we giving France all this gold? They thought it was a big mistake. So over time, if you're holding over long periods of time, that's why I love buy and hold. Over long periods of time, you're never going to lose. It's only when you start thinking short-term in real estate you're going to lose money.
All right, let me end it there. Thank you very much. Great job.
Thanks.
Thank you. Very nice. Thank you. Appreciate it. Okay. What I'm going to do first is I'm going to let the sponsors go so they can grab a table. If you got flyers, sponsors, let's let all the sponsors go first. Remember, if you are a qualified passive investor, there are multiple deals. I do have to put out a disclaimer as I am prohibited from selling securities. I am not selling a security. Remember that it is your responsibility to do the due diligence on these deals, and the final decision whether or not you're going to do the deal is all yours. Next, I want to release all of the members of Total Wealth Academy. If you're already a member, please go ahead and go to the back, head to the bar, and begin networking. And if the non-members would please stay, I only need 5 minutes. I think I can get this done in 5 minutes. Financial Success 101. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and proceed for the people who are not members. I want to talk about, just briefly, Financial Success 101. And it's based off of some interviews I've done with Forbes magazine, with the Wall Street Journal, soon to be released in Newsweek magazine. And there's a conversation going on about saving money. And they all tell you, save your money. And that's the secret to success. Well, let's look at this, please. What they don't tell you is that 95% of Americans fail to retire by age 65. 95%. The common narrative in the news is all about saving your way to retirement. Scrimp, cut coupons, shop sales, you know, you're going to save money. Here's the challenge. The average income for a family of four is around $106,000 a year. That's about $85,000 after taxes. The average bills for a family of four is $101,000 a year. $85,000 in income, $101,000 in expenses. Do you see the disconnect? How in the world are you supposed to save money when you're living paycheck to paycheck? It doesn't work. The concept of saving, scrimping, being cheap is ineffective. Saving your way to retirement doesn't work, and I recommend that all of you stop doing what doesn't work. What are the 5% doing differently? They all built a second stream of income based off of the teachings of Warren Buffett. Warren Buffett said, and you can see in the upper right-hand corner, never depend on a single income, a job. Always invest to create a second source. So, was he referring to stocks, mutual funds, gold, silver, or crypto? No, they don't produce cash flow. He was referring to income-producing assets, businesses, and real estate. And if you read his book, someone asked him, what stocks do you buy? Warren Buffett said, I've never bought a stock. I never would buy a stock. I buy companies. See, he buys controlling interest in companies in the form of stock. He's not buying stocks. He's buying the company. That's what you saw the students of Total Wealth Academy doing tonight. And here's my recommendation. Spend 5% of your time on saving. You know, scrimp, keep the AC high at home. Be careful how fast you drive. Save, sure, that's fun. Do it. Spend 95% of your time focusing on making more money. That's the secret. See, it's a combination of saving and making more money. While the press just tells you to save what you don't earn, what we are doing is making more money. See, you don't have an expense problem or a tax problem. You've got an income problem. You just don't make enough money. That's the problem I had when at age 27, you know, I won a national sales contest and they cut my pay by 20 grand a year. And I realized that a job is the highest risk position you can be in the United States. If you have a job as your sole source of income, you're the risk taker. You love risk. That's your thing. Yeah, I'm going to take a risk. See, those of you who say you're risk adverse, you don't like risk, then why do you only have a job as your sole source of income? You're the risk taker. I had a student, he had 20 or 30 rent houses, 2008. He goes to his office, 12 people. They fired all 12 that day. We're shutting down this office. This was the Great Recession. We're shutting down this office. 11 of them started crying. One of them just packed his cardboard box and left. What was the difference? He had a second stream of income from his 20 or 30 rent houses. He didn't care about the job. But the other 11 people, what happened to them? They got screwed because they only had one source of income, a job. So what I suggest is this: put the coupons down. Put them down. Stop trying to save money. Read a freaking book on how to make more money. Spend 95% of your time on making more money. Our membership and Saturday class teach you how to make more money. Look at what Camille's did. Look at what David is doing. Look at what all the sponsors and the thousands of investors with them are doing. They're building a second stream of income, and you can do it too. And we can teach you how. If you will enroll tonight, our $2,000 Wealth Mastery program is on sale for $500. Part of that is due to the grand opening in Dallas-Fort Worth. For that $500, you'll get an all-day Saturday class with me, and I will walk you through building your second stream of income, both actively or passively. I'll show you how to do both. You also get 2 years of unlimited support from our wealth coaches. We will help you every step of the way. You have unlimited question and answer with our wealth coaches. From your very first house to your first apartment complex, doesn't matter. Unlimited question and answer to help you get past any fears or worries that you have. Plus, we have 40 hours of additional online classes for that $500. So again, if you enroll tonight, our $2,000 Wealth Mastery program is on sale for just $500, and this is a family membership. It covers you, your spouse, and children 18 and under. 18 and under. And that's it. I want to thank you very much for staying afterwards to listen. We truly appreciate the opportunity to share this material with you. But remember, you must enroll by the kiosks by the bar tonight in order to get the discount, and the second year free. All right, thank you, everybody. I'll meet you at the bar.